welcome along everyone. If you'd like to stand, we're going to start with an opening prayer from St Peter's Anglican Cathedral, and I'll ask Andrea Haynes to come forward and give that for us. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Let us pray. Loving God, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honour of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you also for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. On this occasion today, I pray for our Mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council as they make decisions today that affect our community. Grant to them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before you all today. May what is decided here be in accord with your values and benefit those who live and work in Hamilton. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the council meeting for the 26th of November. I want to start just by formally and publicly acknowledging the award that was given by the Recreation Association of New Zealand last week, which councillors are familiar with, which was an award for the Playgrounds of the Future plan that was developed a couple of years ago. And so I see you, Sally, sitting there. Thank you. I just want to say thanks very much, you and Gina and the team. And Councillor Forsyth and I and Councillor Green in this term sat on that working group, and I think we unanimously agreed it was the best working group we've ever sat on. We had a lot of fun, but what's more important, I think, and a note for public record, is that that policy is recognised in New Zealand. That award recognises how outstanding that policy is for all of New Zealand. And Gina told me that she got plenty of questions on the policy, and some of them might be wanting to replicate it. So all the more reason why we've got to get going with it, so that we're ahead of the game. So well done, and please pass on our thanks to all the team. Thanks, Sally, very much. All right. First item, apologies. Now I've got apologies from Councillor Young and Councillor Green.
Just apologies for lateness for Councillor McPherson.
Okay, so I'll move those. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. I'll move it as is. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Carried. Declarations of interest. I think Councillor King, you've got a note for declaration of interest.
Thank you.
That's been that will be recorded in relation to item C2. Thank you. Public forum. We have two speakers in the public forum today. And I'm going to call on Jason Houth first. Welcome along, Jason. 3 minutes, including questions, and I think they've got a bell that rings with 30 seconds to go.
Yep.
Great.
Good afternoon, Council and Your Worship. Today I want to speak to you on the local alcohol policy. To achieve this policy, this Council needs to be seriously looking at alcohol harm reduction and getting the balance right between the resolutions which were passed at the S&P meetings and the amendments put up. This is a local policy, and to understand the local situation is important. Currently, local people can purchase alcohol at 9:45 on a Friday night. The handouts that I have before you now just indicate how cheap that alcohol can be. If you note on the first page of the handout, you can buy 24 beers for $42 at a price of $1.75 per bottle. And just today I had a look at another mailer where we have a new leader in cheap alcohol where you can buy 3 litres of wine for $22. That equates to 26 standard drinks at a cost of 85 cents per standard drink. Now, I understand that this council can't control pricing, but we can control the amount of time people can access such cheap pricing. I would ask you to consider Councillor McPherson's amendment to reduce off-licence hours to 9 p.m. It may not be a popular choice, and it may be subject to appeal, but if this council is seriously looking at reducing alcohol harm, this must be a consideration. Taking away the ability for people to buy large quantities of booze, consuming it in an unmonitored and most likely in extreme excess. As someone who's worked as a duty manager in Hamilton and as a doorman, I don't have a vested interest in a financial interest in a bar in Hamilton. I do agree with the public forum speakers of the November 3rd S&P meeting, and I encourage each councillor to keep an open mind, and should they have enough time to review the YouTube footage of Laurie Weeks' submission at that meeting. I think there's a perception that bars are to blame for most of the issues which occur in the CBD. I would state that CBD arrests should not lie at the feet of bar owners, but for the people who are willing to sell 26 standard drinks to someone for $22. The one-way door policy fails on the argument that it will stagger the flow of people leaving bars. People stagger themselves. As you can see, in between 1:30 and 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning, students proceeding back to the university suburbs. The one-way door policy also fails to justify that there's a drinking time between 2 and 3. When we have the daylight savings changeover, the drinking time doesn't seem to affect. At 2 o'clock, when it becomes 3 o'clock, we see exactly the same issues as any other day of the week. I would say we need to push more of getting people into supervised environments rather than allowing them to buy lots of alcohol and drinking it in excess. Thank you for your time.
Right, thank you very much, Jason. We've got time for one question, Councillor Mallett.
Just very quickly, where are these prices available from, Jason?
So this has come straight out of the countdown mailer of last week and this week.
Are they still current?
The first page is not so much current, but the second page is definitely current.
Is that the 2013 Shiraz?
I'm not too sure, Gary. Should we go find out?
Well, it's a great Shiraz.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mallett. Very good. Thank you, Jason, and thank you very much for the handout and for the time you've taken. It's very, very useful. Right, we have next Graham Derrick to speak. Hello, Graham. How are you? Welcome along. If you'd like to come up to the microphone.
Tātou whare e tūra, te papanui e takatora. Tēnā kōru, tēnā kōru, tēnā kōru. Ka te kiki muri. Kiki muri. Or as Sir Michael Jackson says, sorry, not wrong one, Peter Jackson. The world has a bright future if we learn from the lessons of the past. Ngā mate. Te hoa wahine, te whahea. Te kaimahi o te kaunihera. Haere, haere, haere. Haere ki ngā ringa o te atua. Moe mai, moe mai, moe mai lava. Kia tātou, te hongaora, te hoa tānei, mātua, ka tamariki ātahi. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Ana whanui, o te tāna whanui, o tēnei taone, te motu, o te awa. Kia kaha, kia mahawanui, kia ora. Mōngora ki tātou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kaone hera, kiri ro, te epu, newspaper, whāna whānui, ko tai mai nei tēnei rā. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou. Kia ora. You have papers in front of you, so I'm not going to repeat anything that's on there. There are 2 points we wish to make, of a number of points. The first is in the document you have before you today for today's meeting, item number 9. Sorry. Yes, item number 9. And it refers to a meeting that City Council had with Endley community. And it suggests that community couldn't get their message across. The evidence says otherwise. Because in early December, we were supplied with meetings of a council meeting that was held in committee on the 25th of June. So you already have that, and I have asked for the staff to hyperlink it so that you know where you're at. A point in there, and I think it's number 13, because I've only just, no, sorry, it's into 40 something, 30 something maybe. Anyhow, it's in relation to the discussion with Waikato Tainui. And it says that Waikato Tainui approve of the changes to be made. I've put in a request to council, and as at midday today, we haven't seen the email from Waikato Tainui that gives that approval. I'll leave the rest of the time to questions. Kia ora koutou.
All right, thank you for that, Graham. Yes, Councillor Leary.
Am I on? Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Graham. Look, I'm still unclear as to exactly what your objection is to changing the classification of the park. I've read your handout. Thank you very much. It speaks to your view of errors in the report. Can you tell me exactly what your objections are so that I understand?
Well, if the report's in error, then the council's be leaning up the garden path. You need to have the right information on your report so you can make a valid decision. And we've only obtained the information from a meeting which was held, I think I've already said it, in committee on the 25th of June, at the beginning of December. We were informed when that came to us that this meeting would be held sometime in December. No date, no time, no venue given. When I made inquiries to prepare for December meeting, I was told it was today.
Okay.
Now, the document, which I might refer to as the coloured document, so it's easy to find, what was your concern about that?
Sorry, I'm just still unclear as to why you're objecting to the reclassification of the park.
Because statutory and mandatory requirements have not been met. Council has not followed the Reserves Act, and it has not followed the Local Government Act.
So you're objecting to the process that we've used to go. Okay, thank you.
Well, it hasn't been consulted with the community either.
Okay.
The 25th of June meeting suggests that it's already done and dusted, because it talks about future use. Now, we were told back in February that there was going to be a review, and your councillor is here today, at a public meeting with the community, that there was going to be a council review of all the community centres in town.
Okay, thank you.
We're still waiting.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you, Graham. There's no other questions. Thank you for clarifying what your point was.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there are no more speakers in the public forum. So the next item on the agenda is item 5, council minutes from the 29th of October. So I'll move those minutes. Are you seconding? We got it.
I've just got a couple
Yes.
of queries on them, please.
Go raise those things.
Okay, page 20, Waikato Sub-Regional Waters Study, next steps,
What page?
page 10. Paragraph 7, it's the very top. It talks about the Executive Director of Special Projects, then the next sentence starts off with the manager. Are they the same person? Is that the same thing?
Blair?
Yes, Madam Chair.
It is? Okay, correct
Yes.
wording, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And then fourth down, we talk about, fourth bullet put down and saying we talk about several touch points. And that probably was the vernacular wording used, I think. Can we just be clear on what that means? That means reports or meetings or just some clarity on what that's a pretty colloquial term.
Reports and meetings.
So Blair, that's a return to a formal committee or something, is it?
Yeah, I think Richard's covered that in terms of how he's responded. Yes, it would be all of that.
And more?
Reports and meetings.
Reports and meetings, I think, we haven't defined it specifically, but it would be reports and meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so do you want to just clarify in the minutes brackets, reports and meetings? Because it was touch point where the word...
Yeah, I remember the word being used, yep, but it's just,
Right,
it's not a
thank
clear
you.
thing.
Any others?
Yes, we come down to, and I know this is repeated a couple of times, but so the first time it was sub-paragraph F
Yep.
in the motion, what talks about us finding the funding from our risks and opportunities. The council doesn't have council meetings, by the look of it, don't have, action lists. So just how are we going to capture that? And just I'd like some feedback on that. Is there any feedback on terms of...
I think what we probably should have said is it will be reported back through the risks and opportunities process. So the risks and opportunities process is obviously a mechanism to capture information. Where the corresponding savings will be found to meet that will be reported through the risks and opportunities process.
Okay. So how... Okay, normally when you sort of make a commitment to do something in the future, it goes in an action list. Does this...
So with council resolutions, all of the resolutions are kept on.
Okay.
Yeah, so because it's a council resolution as opposed to sometimes we ask for certain things to be done that aren't resolved. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Right. So if I want an update on that, I look in the risks and opportunities and...
So I think it came through at the last one though.
Yes, it should be on the list already.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
It was on that one. Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So it'll be showing up as a risk in our risk and opportunities. So it'll be up as a $175,000 debit in the risk and opportunities. Is that right?
That's correct. It's showing as a additional expenditure for council, a reduction in the overall position, and at this stage we haven't identified any savings to match it, but overall we have a net positive risks and opportunities schedule.
So in actual fact you have found it, the money's...
Yeah, but not specifically assigned against that one yet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I've moved with those changes and Councillor Mallet has seconded. Any other discussions? Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour? Any against? Carried, thank you. Right, the next item are the recommendations from the Finance Committee, page 14. That's you, Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will move from the Finance Committee of the 22nd of October that Council approve the following new community occupancy leases to the Hamilton Cadet Forces, to the Metro Judo Club, the Arts for Health Community Trust, the Artmaker Community Trust, and the Hamilton Community Men's Shed.
Right. Do we need to take these separately? No, they can be dealt with together.
That was my intent, unless anyone...
Yes, I was just checking, looking around the room here, if there are...
It's a query.
Yes, what was the query?
I think you've got the wrong name of the park for three of them.
Wrong name of the park.
CD, is it CD&E? Is it not the Norris Ward Park now?
Good.
And
Very astute, Councillor McPherson. Well done.
Well done.
Fabulous. Great.
No, I didn't support it.
Only from Tuesday, though. I think the agenda came out before...
Right, no, point
That
noted.
point
Well
taken.
done, thank you. Councillor Mallet was there.
I was just going to second these.
Second, okay, seconded by Councillor Mallet. Yes, Councillor Tooman.
Just one question, Your Worship, is the Hamilton Cadet Forces building, and perhaps Chris can help us on this one, is that not part of the road reserve for Wairere Drive, which I understand will be completed within the 2-year period?
Chris, there's a road going through their building.
Or some of the land, perhaps.
Or some of their land. Thank you, Renee.
But they are getting a discounted rent though, aren't they?
Right, good, councillor Mallett, helpful.
Is located on road reserve and is within the Southern Links designation. So that's why we recommended a 2-year lease, was to give the
Right.
development unit time to carry on their investigations. At that point, there'll be certainty in terms of the alignment, but a road won't be going through there within the next 2 months.
So that's why the lease is only for the 2 years, councillor Toomey, to enable, clarity around that, and then they'll know their formal position during that period of time. Yes. Does that
Well,
answer?
maybe I'm way out of touch, but
Yes.
I understood that it was going to hook into Cobham Drive this construction season. Am I right, Chris, or not?
I'd have to check, but I think the project we're doing now is connecting to Cobham Drive.
Yep.
But the building can stay there, and the access we've designed off an alternative road. So I think the building stays there. We've redesigned access, so it can stay there. And the disruption comes with the Southern Links in the future at some point as well.
So they've got a new entry-exit point all taken care of as part of the design. Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, any other questions on these? Yes, councillor King.
Have these leases been signed by both parties once we get to this stage, or is this about presenting a lease for signing?
The leases have not been signed at this stage.
Thank you.
Right, no other questions. I'm going to put these recommendations. All those in favour? Are there any against? Okay, carried. Thank you. The next item, item 7, page 16. Councillor O'Leary, these are recommendations from your committee.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I have no indication of whether the council wants these taken separately.
Probably would be a good idea, I think.
Okay, so I will move the first one, the draft public places policy and bylaw for public engagement.
Right, seconded by councillor Mallett. Thank you. Any discussion on that? So councillors, we might use the board because my recollection was they weren't all unanimous. So is the board on, thanks? Yes. Right, so councillors, we're going to vote on the first recommendation, the public places policy and bylaw. We're going to vote on the board. Voting now. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next one is...
Yes, item 2, recommendation to council election signs policy review, and that recommendation is that that policy be deleted.
Okay, that's moved by councillor O'Leary, seconded by councillor Mallett. Any discussion? Yes, councillor McPherson.
Yes, I wish to speak against this and urge councillors not to vote for this. I'm not necessarily saying that the existing bylaw has the correct wording. I'm saying that it should have some work done on it so it's brought up to date, because the central purpose of the election signs policy is that, in my opinion, that there should be provision for election signs, and we should have policy that governs that, and particularly election signs on limited areas of council land, as we had at the last election. There have been all sorts of spurious reasons put forward around the committee table earlier. Because signs were damaged, we shouldn't have a policy allowing anyone to have them in future was one of them. I don't buy any of that. I think those sorts of issues or problems are manageable. I think the reason that we put it in place in the first place, that the last council put it in place after many years of struggle to get it on the books, was to enable new candidates to have an early chance at getting their name out to the public on an equal basis to existing councillors. There's been plenty of studies done in recent years to show that existing councillors, I'm not talking about Hamilton Council specifically, I'm talking about councils around the country, have an advantage in re-election simply because of name recognition and the associated factors. This was one means of giving people, other people, new candidates, whose names were not necessarily well known, a chance to put their names out there in public. Of course, it's not the whole story, and I'm not suggesting it is, and people have to be presumably well known in the community and have good policies and speak well and attend things and, you know, have their name out there in lots of other places. This is one area, though, where having election signs up, existing councillors and candidates from significant sized groups do have an advantage over other individuals. I think that the last council made the right decision to put this policy in place to give, in a limited and manageable way, 5 sites on each side of the city a place to put their election signs. I think it's a retrograde and self-serving move to remove that. I don't think it costs us as a council anything cash-wise to do this. I think it helps democracy, and I'm on the side of helping democracy, not limiting it. So I think we should not be removing this policy, and we should vote against this and then ask staff to work on revamping or upgrading the previous policy.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Right, we're going to vote on the board for this motion.
Carried 8 votes for it and 3 against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Leary?
Yes, Your Worship. Item number 3, road stopping for Ruakura and Percival Road. I will move that.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mallett. Any discussion or debate on this?
Just a question,
Yes.
if I may, Your Worship.
Yes.
Just in terms of the public consultation, what's the process that's envisaged here? Is it going to be open to all the public or just limited to the people who live in the area? You know, what sort of consultation do they write? Is it verbal?
It's quite extensive, isn't it?
It's quite extensive. I think the letter of the legislation is to serve notice on directly affected properties, of which I think there's about 40. But we've elected to take it to the Public Information Day. I think we held that last week, I think, where we had a display up publicly to make it as widely known as possible. So I think the process accepts submissions from any party.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to vote on this on the board. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Item 4, Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, another road stopping on the CDL land. I'll move that.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mallett. Any debate or discussion on this? Right, go to the...
I'm sorry, I do have a query. Briarwood Rise was a road that had some stopping action, if that's the correct technical term, placed on it only a matter of 5 or 6 years ago by this council. So I'm just wondering, 2 of these stoppings within quite a short period for a council road. It was formerly part of Sylvester. And
So is your question, did we do that before?
Yeah, or is this a second iteration for the same road, or?
Yeah, it is the same road, Sylvester Road. The previous stoppings were a lot further to the north, associated with, I think it might have been the Gladesdale property or something like that, but it was quite sort of distinct. This is a little bit further southwards. So it is the same road, but Sylvester Road was quite a long road that ran through the Rototuna area.
So is this new stopping taking place because of commercial development of the land there?
Correct.
And are we bearing any costs for the road stopping?
No, all the costs are borne by the developer.
Including the legal costs, I mean, you know, in preparing these documents?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Right, we're going to vote, councillors, on the board. Okay.
Carried unanimously.
Right, thank you. The next item is item 8, which is a report in relation to some changes to the delegations policy. So, Judy, are you speaking to these? Thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship. Yes, this is an administrative reporting back to the Council following the restructure of the Chief Executive's leadership team. So this is an update of the delegations to reflect those changes, and just noting that in 2016 there'll be a comprehensive review and brought back to the incoming Council.
Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Jude. Page 21, third paragraph down, it talks about those with delegated authority should willingly accept authority and responsibility for decision-making certain knowledge that their decisions are made in a full... What's full mean in this context? Just fair and objective is all you need, isn't it? Does full mean something? Does that have some legal meaning?
Not to my knowledge, Councillor, and I suppose when I've reviewed this document, I've updated it just to reflect the changes,
Okay.
and there will be a full review of it next year.
Okay. So maybe there is some, clearly this is a relatively old document perhaps, and maybe full does mean something, but it doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah, okay. The next page, 22, under general and specific delegations, the third paragraph there, delegations will be updated for general delegations as they are granted, but not necessarily those of a specific nature, which will be largely historical by the time they are recorded in the policy. I don't understand what that means.
I think that means there will be, and I didn't write this original delegations. I've just picked up.
Not trying to catch you.
No, just clarifying.
That'll come later.
Yeah, I'm sure. My understanding is the general delegations are delegations that run the whole term, but within that period there might be a specific delegation required at any point in time.
Okay.
Which might be for a finite period.
For example, Councillor Mallett, I'll receive delegations from time to time to execute a sale or something to that effect. Yep.
It does. It says which should be largely historical by the time they are recorded in the policy. So does that mean that they might be get done? But those sort of delegations will be, we would delegate to you in a committee meeting, in a council meeting, to do a sale.
And they wouldn't be reflected in the delegations brought back to the council for confirmation, because by that passage of time might mean that the actions happened and it's historical.
Okay, thank you. Page 23, the characteristics of delegation B. The delegate is acting in his or her own name on behalf of the council when exercising delegated authority. But they're not acting in his or her own name, they're acting on behalf of the council, aren't they?
Correct.
So it says above, it is important to understand the following characteristics of delegation. The delegate is acting in his or her own name.
And that councillor would be because the council has delegated that to that particular position.
Wouldn't it be accurate or just make it crystal clear to say the delegate is acting on behalf of the council and just take his or her own name out of it?
I'm sure there could be wording improvements, councillor.
Because that kind of makes it sound like you're in the gun. Legal, so page 24, legal framework, the third bullet point down, to borrow money or purchase or dispose of asset. I don't see any thresholds there. And you could take this to the absurdity. So these are the things council can't delegate. So I just put that into context. So it depends on what you call an asset, but I mean, you're not wanting, surely the CEO is okay to authorise staplers and things like that, or photocopiers, or, I mean, there's no threshold. There should be a monetary threshold there, shouldn't there, or something? Because otherwise you're tied up. Theoretically, you're tied up.
I think it's qualified councillor by other than in accordance with the long-term plan.
Okay, where's that?
That's within that same bullet point.
Oh, okay.
So if council set a policy position, then staff need to implement that in accordance with the planning document.
Okay, so just to be clear, once we once there's a plan in place, that's a delegation, isn't it? Is it? Is it? That's
So-
De jure a delegation?
Effectively, that provides the context for this.
decision by
Within the, but there are other sub-delegations as well. Is it a financial delegation that
Yeah.
can affect certain transactions up to a certain amount, as long as it's within the long-term strategy as well.
I'm just trying to make sure this policy is actually what
It
we
could
do.
be it could be better worded, but
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. And then there's this, the page 25, I just don't know what this is telling us. So there's a box there with unexpended budget. Can you just can someone who knows, and it may or may not be Jude, explain what those are?
So this is the financial delegations. So, for example, that if you look at the one that says contract payments, I can approve contract payments up to 1.5 million, or not exceeding 1.5 million, and not exceeding 5 years, including renewals. So it effectively outlines the financial delegations to me, and from within that, I sub-delegate that to staff within the delegation to officers.
So you can write up, for example, you could write off a debt up to 10,000?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
And that's why within the finance committee, for example, and with this, I've got to report those through to the finance committee. For example, on the 10,000 write-off.
Okay. Okay, does our risk and opportunities report kind of bolster the delegations? Because that's a report back to council of what's gone away from budget, because our budget is a delegation, I think. And then the risks and opportunities is a variance from delegation, and we can question you or the staff to those sort of things. And if once we've approved it, we've actually effectively approved that variance. Is that what we do when we approve the risks and opportunities?
No, there is still a process where if it exceeds the delegations that are recorded here, we still have to bring that back formally to council. So,
Okay.
for example, we are currently recording on the risks and opportunities 2 variances around renewals for assets, one being positive and one being negative. In February, we are proposing to bring that back formally so council actually can approve that. At this stage, we have not reached those levels. That's the year-end estimate of what that change will be.
Okay.
And as that takes effect, we need to bring that back.
Okay, thank you. Page 7, waiver of council, that's at the bottom of page, oh, sorry, beg your pardon, that's page 7 of the policy. Page 27 of the agenda. At the bottom, waiver of council fees and charges. The second to last line, there's a point C. The act of waiving such fees and charges reflects good citizen conduct. What's that? Thank you. You know what that is?
I think it's where something is there's an exceptional circumstance, or someone's made a case that council considers, or general manager considers.
So we waive a parking meter because your wife's having a baby or something like that. Yeah. Is that what it means? So that's what we think it means. Okay. Okay.
And it'll be reported to the finance committee, and I can't recall ever seen one in my time coming through to the finance committee, but my 10 years only been quite short, so I'm not sure how many times we've actually used that waiver.
All councillors have a waiver there, haven't they?
Right, any
No,
other questions?
no councillors have a
Because
waiver
we're
there.
good citizens.
Any other questions, councillor?
Yeah, there are. Page 30.
Yep.
This is under the chief executive. It's under the conditions. It's the third bullet point down. Now, this is the thing you've changed because previously the delegation was to Barry Harris or to Richard Briggs, but now you're saying the delegation is the CEO. Is that what? So that's what this does. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And just to clarify that, I went back in the minutes following the 2013 elections when council specifically wanted the clause in to vary or revoke, but the opportunity to review the delegations and vary and revoke it. And for some reason, the words chief executive got put in there in error, and it wasn't part of the council resolution.
Okay.
Actually, it was to delegate it to the position rather than
The person.
the person. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And just a global question. From a staff point of view, does this policy works? Because it's sort of something you don't, it's there, but you don't really run into it very often. So we don't. I mean, I've never had reason to think that a delegation policy isn't working, but you'll know.
It does work, Councillor Mallet, and it provides, it's probably the key document for engaging with staff. It also provides the basis for what comes through the Finance Committee and Council in terms of what things are outside delegations as well. When we review it, we always look at whether or not the levels are right, whether it's worded correctly. We've got to continue to focus on that as well. So next time we review it, we'll go back again, re-challenge it, make sure it stacks up. This time around, we worked on ensuring we're tidying up around development contributions and so forth, given some recent experience prior to the last election with some of the clarity around development contributions. We specifically included that. So there's just ongoing improvements rather than any fundamental concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Any other good, Councillor McPherson?
Yes, thanks. Following that last point, I've got a couple of questions about relating to some items on page 25, more by way of example, checking, and the Chief Executive has mentioned prior to the last election, I recall there was some debate about the authority to waive debts arising from the V8s, debts to council, and about the delegated authority. At that time, I think we had an acting chief executive, and there was a question about the authority of that particular position who wasn't named there. Can you explain what would happen if you're not here? Does your authority devolve to someone that you've appointed? Does it devolve to this deputy assistant, whatever it is? Or how does that work in that circumstance?
So effectively, I name someone to effectively have my delegation. So it's not just, hey, by the way, you've got the helm number one. I make sure that the person I give that delegation to has the appropriate skills to fulfil those delegations.
You have the delegated authority to delegate to someone?
Yes.
And can they delegate to someone?
I could clarify further, Madam Chair. Councillor, the Chief Executive has appointed a Deputy Chief Executive. So on page 31 of the agenda, I actually included a completely separate item for the Deputy Chief Executive for when the CE's away.
But is that where it stops? The doubt of power to, in absence, okay, he's away on holiday, Lance is, is over in Tauranga for a meeting, something happens here. What happened? I'm just checking, is there a tree that's set up in here?
No, there's not.
Okay, thanks. No,
So it's an active action. It's not a.
I've got
to come to work today. Obviously, who's going to do my job? Scenario.
Okay, and through you, Your Worship, to the Chief Executive, I'm asking if he's aware of the trouble that an earlier Chief Executive of this council, who later went on to some fame, or some might say infamy, in Christchurch, when he, with the contract payment of over his delegated authority of $250,000, split the payment, I think it was around $400,000 to $200,000, and authorised them separately. That the Auditor General's ruled that if we have let's say a $3 million contract, you can't split it in half and authorise them separately.
That's addressed in here, isn't it?
I'm just checking that he's aware of that.
Oh.
I'm absolutely aware of that, and so are staff, and we ensure that that's enforced.
And slightly more seriously, it could be a situation where, say, we have a major roading project, and we could be receiving invoices for components, but they're part of an overall picture. I'm concerned that we could sort of approve something, or that an officer could approve, whether it's a CEO or someone lower down, could approve it by component rather than as a whole. How do we handle that sort of situation?
So effectively, it comes down to the contract that's been let and what it's for. And as you're aware, Councillor Mallet, we have some robust processes.
No, he's Councillor Mallet.
Sorry, McPherson. Sorry. My apologies to either of them, whoever was offended. Councillor McPherson, is that basically we bring through like the business case. We have quite a robust process. Business cases come through and we make sure they're signed off. There's approval for contracts in itself. If they're over a certain amount, they've got to go to public tender and so forth. So we have very robust procurement processes. And then there's also delegations within that for executing contract payments as well to ensure that we've got the cascade correct. So we believe we've got very robust processes. In fact, when it's reviewed externally, it comes back as being robust. Is something you want to add to that?
I think we just want
that
to
would be preset, are you saying, that the delegations within a contract?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Councillor, there are instances where a contract that has been out to tender, which is for a large sum of money, would be in excess of $1.5 million, some of the payments, but that's explicitly covered for in the delegations here, where it talks about contracts payment for revenue, where council has approved it, approved contract sum. The general manager can approve large amounts, provided it's within accordance with the approved contract sum with a contract that's been tendered. So, because of course some of those instalment payments could be on large projects significant.
But if it comes back outside that, the invoice, let's say, and it comes back, if it doesn't meet any delegation, it automatically comes back to the Finance Committee.
That's correct.
Yeah, I remember that we particularly did that, included that as a new part of the delegations after the V8, so that there wasn't a component sum would be under, but the whole would be over. We wanted to capture the component sums to make sure that every part of it was monitored and properly brought through to the Council and Finance Committee. Yeah, so that's been a good initiative. Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions. Yes, Councillor Forsyth.
It's on the same page. It's just regarding the, if you could explain to me the additional 500, it's note part B. At risk, 500,000 at risk component to apply only in the event of a declared emergency to give the maximum annual OPEX brought forward cap of 1.5. Can you just explain that to me?
So this is in the event of a civil defence emergency, where as civil defence controller, for example, that person may need to authorise emergency works. In those instances, sometimes that person may need to go above the delegated limit of the CEO. There's an ability to go $500,000 above that prior to getting council resolution, because of course at that time you're trying to respond in an emergency situation. So this is just to provide a level of flexibility within a certain cap to respond to those situations. And of course what would happen in practice is that the Civil Defence Controller would need to convene a quorum of council members if there was need to expend more than that amount of money and just get a council approval to do so.
Okay.
So it just provides in those days, in the immediate aftermath of an event, some level of ability to spend, because the preservation of life and welfare of people is the first focus.
So to spend it up to 1.5, is that what that's saying?
It says that you can spend an additional $500,000.
Yes, on top of the 1 million, yeah. Okay. So my question would be then, is that amount enough?
At this stage, we believe it is, but I think it's something that, again, when the policy is reviewed post the election, something that we'll look at again. But at this stage, there is some work happening at the regional level, looking at delegations around civil defence emergencies. So I think once that work is done, it would be appropriate to look at it in the context of our policy. Right. I'm relatively confident, councillors, that council would be able to convene a quorum of members to give necessary delegated authority if needed.
Situational, contextual, depending on, Yeah,
you could do it by, under the new Local Government Act, you don't have to all be in attendance, you could do it by telephone. We could find another way to get the delegation quite quickly to the Finance Committee or Council.
Can we do it by telephone? I mean,
yes, we can. Now they've changed the legislation.
Yeah, well, my thought was that, gee whiz, if a very big pipe, and we know how much pipes cost, so we spend tens of millions of dollars every so often to have those either replaced or upgraded, but if something like that happened in the event of an extreme flood, and that tends to be, extreme weather conditions seem to be much more prevalent now.
I think we'd struggle to spend that quantum of money in the time frame it would take to get together an emergency meeting of councillors. And I think this is really designed in instances where you're having to deploy helicopters, rescue vehicles, emergency water supply, that sort of thing, and that's a relatively large sum of money. And so, yes, it could be exhausted relatively quickly in an emergency situation, but I'm comfortable that there's enough there to get us through the first immediate period.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, councillors. Yes, Councillor King.
Just going to your point, Mayor Hardacre, are you saying that we don't have to attend meetings and we can do it over the telephone?
No, I'm talking about the changes that were made. Oh, Jude, there we go. Jude can update you about the changes that were made in the legislation in relation to physical attendance of meetings under the Act.
Yeah, I'm aware of the changes that were made,
Yeah.
but what my question is surely a resolution has to be put forward through this particular council before that can start to happen, and that's never happened
Jude?
in mine.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
that's
right.
correct. The legislation has changed to enable it, but this council needs to actually write it into your policy document.
So that
And
hasn't
make it.
happened. So how, when
So we
the
haven't done
emergency
that. No, you're
happens,
quite
that
right.
we can get together on a telephone? It just
Yeah,
won't
no,
work.
you're quite right, Councillor King. We haven't done that.
So should we be looking at that?
Yeah, as part of the update of our policies.
Standing orders,
What you're
yes, it
talking
needs
about.
to be reflected in standing orders and guidelines put in place around that.
So perhaps you could have a little closer look at that, Jude?
I will,
Okay,
yes.
thanks. Right, so I'm going to put this, I've moved it, sorry, and who seconded the Deputy Mayor did? All right, so we're going to vote on this, councillors, on the board? Are we on, sorry, Mary? Thank you. So, councillors, we're just going to take a 10-minute break, and we're going to reconvene at 25 2. Okay, thank you.
Just a 20 over game tonight, is it?